And Rob, like I was wondering if you had other frameworks that were helpful in that self-discovery process that helped them answer that question, or other areas you would help them look at in having that conversation of when you bring somebody in to augment the role, how do you think about that from a mental framework perspective or from a carving out responsibility and time?
It's such a huge question, and like I think the most important thing to say in there, and I'm not trying to dodge the question or how I would try to help someone else think about it, but it's it is very personal, very context driven, right? Like that's the thing that I think is most important in all of this is what's going to make your organization successful is not what's going to make someone else's organization successful, right? Like just because someone else in your peer group who you know really well and you think in similar ways has decided to bring in, a director under them and that's how they're going to split up the work doesn't mean that's the right answer for you, right? And so I think we always struggle to have these conversations in a very just open and personal way. Like I think it's easy and I'll acknowledge like the fortune that I have to be able to think about this pretty openly. But it's easy to let outside pressures, outside expectations come in. I would say, probably one of the most important things would be to go get the real outside expectations, right? I already told you, Jim, our CEO, like we came in through an acquisition together. We've worked together for 10 years. Like I generally know where he's coming from, but I'll still go ask him, like, hey, this is how I'm thinking about this problem. Like, what's your input on this? There's a reason we work well together because we have different perspectives, right? Like, why wouldn't I share that? So, or look for that, right? And so, um, don't project onto other people their expectations of you, right? Go find out what those are. And they might not align with what your expectations are, but wouldn't you rather know that now than after you decide to make a really big change? But of course, I have no idea who's listening and what size anyone's company is or organization, but like I talk about this a lot because this is where we are as an organization. And I think it's really valuable for us in terms of our stage of growth. But, you know, at 20 and 30 people, I was slamming out code and rebooting boxes and figuring out how to, deploy security groups and everything else. Like, I wasn't sort of sitting around saying, what would be personally fulfilling for me? It's like, how do we get this company to a stage where I get to ask that question, right? Like, and so, don't lose sight of that. I think all you should it's such a weird I feel like I'm giving both pieces of advice at the same time. Like pay attention to what motivates you. Burnout is real, right? Understanding how can I contribute, but at the same time know that, you know certainly in the earliest of organizations, everybody has one job. That job is product market fit. If you don't have product market fit, none of these questions matter, right? Like doesn't matter how much you want to do one thing or another, you're going to do whatever it takes, right, to get to that point. And so, I guess weigh that against kind of where you are in the evolution. But then as you start to think about it, like I guess understand outside expectations, understand what's real and possible for you as a business, right? Or for you and your business, I guess. Like, where are we from a funding perspective? What kind of person could we bring in right now? Like, if you're really talking about, so if we narrow the focus to just augmenting your role, right? I think understanding where you are is a really, really important and probably less obvious than it sounds exercise. Meaning, what what do we value right now, right? And that's actually, to me, that's really interesting because values were probably set, or if you're past product market fit and scaling quickly, values were set earlier on the growth curve than you are right now. And so if you are talking to folks who think that a company of your current size is interesting, but your values are all set back here, right? Like we're young and scrappy and we stay up all night. And I mean, young company, I'm not young by any stretch, but I still think this way. Um, well, we stay up all night and we like code into the wee hours and we live off Soylent, but we want to bring in this really mature person who's going to pull us into the next level. Someone who's coming from a much more mature organization, right? Who has structure and like process and ways of thinking, and the first day is just going to be clashing. Wait a second, this is totally not what we wanted, sort of thing. So just be like really, really honest about where you are and what you need if you're considering actually partitioning the role in that way. And I think you can be a little bit ahead, right? You want someone who helps at the next level. But if you're 3 levels ahead, right? I mean, I think the when you're small, there's always the humor about the person who, comes in and then the first job is to hire 5 VPs. And you're like, that was the job you were supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like now you need to manage all the people so we can get the work done. I would imagine going through that process, you would learn a lot about yourself.